Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining and tuning into the Realmsmith Excommunication Episode 2 stream right before this. And now we're here with the post-show commentary. I'm Rem Alternis. I'm the Community and Marketing Director for Catalyst. I was in charge of this project. And today I've got a very special guest with me, Jason Hardy, the line developer for Shadowrun. Hi, Jason.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm getting a little bit of lag, and I know it's my fault because I'm at a hotel. So I apologize to our viewers. But it was a day of travel, and I was so excited to get here and talk about the episode and the future of Shadowrun and kind of break it down here after the show. So we won't keep everyone too long, but we had a lot go on this episode. I feel like episode one, throw into the chaos, lone stars everywhere. How do we shoot and make skill checks and roll initiative? And this episode, we got to get a little further into the characters and especially the Matrix. The Matrix played a big role. So I kind of want to ask you some questions, Jason, about how the Matrix works. And we can kind of answer both for Sixth and for Anarchy. So those who are just joining us, Shadowrun Anarchy is the main system we use for excommunication, which is a rules light system built off of 5th edition Shadowrun. And 6th edition is the current edition of Shadowrun. So we sprinkled a little 6th edition in with our Anarchy, like spices.
Good. Great.
So I guess, Jason, let's start off with how do you envision the Matrix working in Shadowrun?
So I think the fun thing about the Matrix is it can work in a lot of ways. It can be kind of this open realm that you can take players to and do all sorts of weird, strange things. One of the runs that the group I played with remembers the most was a Matrix-based run, and they ended up visiting like a big vampire castle in the Matrix and, you know, staking bodies that were actually ice and then had some keys that they needed to do to unlock parts of the Matrix. And they loved it because it was just so open and so kind of free of some of the reality that you have to deal with. And that's what you can do in the Matrix a lot of times is forget about physics, forget about reality, and just make it what you want it to be because it can be wide open. But you can also interweave it, and that's one of the fun things about AR that they introduced in SR4 is that you can really blend the Matrix right in with what everyone else is doing so that the hacker has a role right alongside the spellcasters and the street Sammies, and they can actively function and do cool things in parallel with them.
I think the best iteration of AR I've seen so far in media is like Altered Carbon. Season 1, they did a really good job of like you're walking down the street and just advertisements are in your face, lighting up all around you.
Yeah, Blade Runner 2049 does a pretty good job of it too. But yeah, Altered Carbon was great. Yeah. And then the sci-fi TV series Alphas had the one kind of technomancer-like character. But the way he interacted with the internet was very technomancer, but had a kind of a good AR feel. I pull up images from Alpha sometimes when I'm doing reference material for art, so people think I can say make the arrows look like this instead of just a screen.
I love that. There. The hot topic? I have a preference, but I want to hear from the line developer himself. Is it arrows or AROs?
I usually say arrows.
Okay,
it's quicker.
All right, and we're talking in-depth Shadowrun here. What is an ARO? Or an arrow?
It is an augmented reality object. So it's something that, you know, if you have whatever will let you see augmented reality, glasses, cyber eyes, contact lenses, then you can get something from your comlink projected in front of you that blends in with the environment. I mean, if you played Pokemon Go, you've seen an ARO because you hold the phone up and you see that there's the Pokemon character that isn't really there. And that's an ARO. It's just in Shadowrun, you have it more in your regular field of vision than having to put up the phone up. So it could be ads, it could be decoration, it could be just cool things that people do to make the place you're in look neater. It can be a wide range of things.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about the layout of the Matrix. So as the characters are kind of talking about this, and we went into this in game a little bit today, like when you go into AR or VR, which we'll talk about as well, and you're in a host.
Mhm.
It could be your host, it could be someone else's host, a company's host, whatever it is. What is a host?
A host is just basically their big site. So that's where they put all their material. If you're going to visit whatever they have on the Matrix, whether it's their public host, so that's going to be where you go find information from them and interact, or a private host where that might be for employees so that they can share work information and find files. That's just kind of their domain where you're going to go to interact with that particular entity on the Matrix.
Okay. Okay, so that's kind of neat. So you've got your, like, here's what I want the public to see and interact with, and then here's the one we use behind the scenes for everything else. And you can have as many of those as you want. And they exist kind of as places in the Matrix.
Right.
So I can't remember which books. You're gonna have to help me with this. But like whenever I think of, like, if you were gonna go infiltrate Amazon's host, what would that look like?
So what you probably need to do is get through a few layers of hosts, because they probably have their public host, which is their main face. Their employee host might branch off of that, and then you'll have a security host, and you'll just have to navigate the network of hosts to figure out where the information you want is. Both the core book of SR6 and the Matrix rule book, Hack and Slash, have some diagrams of just different ways you might set up all these networks of hosts to work together, so you can see how they might interweave them.
Cool. Okay. Now, since we're talking about places, let's talk about distances next. So, I'm hanging out right now in Indiana, and if I wanted to go hack a host in Seattle, do I need my meat sack, as the show likes to call it? My body needs to be close. Do I just need to travel via the Matrix? Like, how does that distancing work?
So usually you're going, I mean, some of it will depend on where the location of the host is, as opposed to where their physical headquarters are, because they might put their host more accessible. But you're going to have to deal with noise, which is the farther you are away physically from your target, then the more interference you're going to have to deal with. And that's going to make it harder to hack in. So you want to get physically closer a lot of times to make it easier to do your hacking, so you can lower your noise. There's some other measures you can take to lower noise, but that's the mechanic to keep you from just hacking the world from your den. Sometimes you got to go
Cool.
out
Yeah,
and do stuff.
I always imagine the noise like my hotel connection right now, where it's like skippy or fuzzy or snowy
Right.
from the back TV days, and that makes it harder to access and slower to load and everything like that. So,
You're trying
um,
to defeat
so
the
let's talk about
intrusion countermeasures, and the fuzziness is coming and it's not reacting when you're hitting destroy. So yeah.
right. So let's talk about, we talked about places and how to get there. What are icons?
So icons are anything you will interact with in the Matrix. Almost anything has to have an icon. So that's going to be the people, the things, the sprites, the agents, the intrusion countermeasures, the files. Everything will have some sort of icon, just so you have a way to interact with it.
Is it Does it have to be like, a lot of what you mentioned are beings of some sort, like arguably are sprites beings, but is it just, could it be a device like a
Yeah.
laptop that gets left behind, or does there have to be someone logged into it?
No, it could be as long as the device is on, like a camera, it could have an icon. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. So you get to interact with these icons and get into these hosts to interact with these icons. Um, So let's talk a little bit about the difference between AR and VR. So augmented reality and virtual reality, and how do they function in Shadowrun?
So augmented reality is going to be the overlay while you're still keeping most of your senses in the, quote unquote, real world. so that you'll still be walking around in reality. You'll just see the Matrix on top of that. VR is you're going to fully go into the Matrix, so you're going to essentially turn off your vision and hearing of the real world and go fully into whatever virtual vision is presented to you. Virtual reality hacking in Shadowrun tends to be faster and a little more powerful just because you're dedicating all of your resources to that and you're not dividing your attention. But you still can do augmented
Kind of like
reality
walking. You saying that makes me think it's almost like trying to hack something while walking on your phone and you
Right.
crash into everything.
Right.
And you're like walking and breathing and everything else that you're doing, versus like, all right, I'm just going to sit in this chair and the only thing I'm focused on is the task at hand.
Yeah, it's both your mental power and your device's processing power because it's a little more difficult to map everything around you and keep the images moving with that map than it is just to create a graphical world that you are immersed in.
And to clarify, it's not just sitting in a chair and like sitting and having game night or something like that, but you're actually putting your consciousness into the Matrix.
Yeah,
So
depending
your
on exactly
body
what your connection is, but you're going fully in, and you can even have a connection that lets you feel and taste and have full sensory interaction with what you encounter in the Matrix. It can be deeply wired into your brain.
Cool. All right, so let's talk about the difference then. So between Deckers and Technomancers, what's the difference between the archetypes that you can play?
So Deckers interact with the Matrix through devices. Their name comes from cyber decks, which are their mostly illegal devices that they use to hack into the Matrix. Everyone else has comm links so that you interact with cyber decks to let you do the illicit hacking, but Deckers depend on some sort of device to hack. Technomancers have the ability to interact with the Matrix with their brains, so they don't need any device at all. They can just have it going on with their minds and access hosts and do all the stuff they need to do with their brains.
So in the sixth world, you can now a Decker could interact with the Matrix wirelessly through, is that a data jack? Or a
Data
cyber
jack
jack?
would be just an implant you get to hold some data physically on you. So it's a comm link that lets you interact
Gotcha.
with the Matrix. That's a primary
Okay.
device most people use for Matrix interaction.
Because it makes me think of I'm playing a version of Shadowrun that's in the 50s, so you have to actually plug in. I always think like, where's the Ethernet port? Like, plug in, and then I also think the Matrix. Like, one end goes into the wall outlet, and the other end goes into my brain, right?
Yeah, some poor slots going out there with serial connections, trying to find the right adapters. It's a nightmare.
So, but now in the sixth world, doing that wirelessly, where you don't have to have that cord, is it kind of just like logging into Wi-Fi?
Mostly, yeah. There are some times that people keep a wired host because, Wi-Fi is open to everyone. So sometimes you might not make a wireless host, so you have to plug in. But for the most part, yeah, it's just using Wi-Fi and navigating through the system, just similar to what you would now, but a more powerful and differently architected, if that's a word, system than we have at the moment.
Okay. So a Decker, if you take their deck away, they're pretty much stranded.
Yeah.
Whereas a Technomancer, you take a deck away, they're not using it anyway. They're just going to think at it and open the garage door or whatever the case
Right.
may be.
Sometimes they'll have a comm link or something as a cover, just so people don't know that they're a Technomancer. But yeah, they can just do it with their brain.
So Technomancers also interact kind of like you would think with a Decker, like they have programs and stuff where they could run, the usual searches and tools that they use in order to hack, where a Technomancer doesn't really download programs into their brain. So
but they use what are called complex forms. So the complex forms often have similar functions to programs, and sometimes they have their own functions that are distinct from programs, but they can still have some of that functionality through the complex forms that they use.
Cool.
They also, and a fun thing that they can do that's parallel with mages, is they can summon sprites which are somewhat similar to spirits, so they can summon these matrix entities to perform services for them and do their dirty work while they're otherwise occupied.
How do you envision sprites? Because mine has kind of changed over the years that I've played. At first it was just a sparkle that was like kind of like a program, and you give it a command, like you give a program a command and it does it, but it's not sentient. But in excommunication, Lore clearly has a personality, which is funny to me because that still would have needed to be decided on by the technomancer compiling it. So explain how does a sprite work?
Good heavens, now we're getting to the mysteries of the Matrix. How does it work? It just does. The Matrix is formed of wibbly wobbly, noosey woosey, timey wimey stuff. So it's we don't know all the implications of how resonance works and how resonance is shaped. That's what technomancers use. That's kind of the connecting bond they have from their brains to the Matrix is resonance. And we deliberately leave that a little vague. We don't want it to be magic because magic is its own thing. But we don't want to describe it too much because, not to throw too much shade. You get too detailed, and that way lies midichlorians, and no one wants midichlorians.
Yeah, now that you answer, it's a very fair answer, because when I think the same question to what is a spirit, like, I don't know, I guess magic is an easy explanation for me that my brain understands more than like the technical, like, how does laptop angry, like it mad at me right now, kind of thing.
Yep. Well, to quote what I said in SR6, magic works by Argo, Bargo, Fufara, no one knows. We don't know what it is. We don't know what spirits are. That's
So what is who's stronger, a Decker or a Technomancer?
No, I'm not getting into that one. The minute I say one side or another, there's angry people telling me why I'm wrong and other angry people telling me why they're wrong. They're both wonderful and we love them all. That's right.
The reason I ask is Jason and I kind of said, like, well, when you explain it, like, okay, a Decker's stuck using a cyber deck and a Technomancer uses their brain and can do these complex forms and summon sprites, like, what's the downside to a Technomancer? And the answer, tell me if I'm wrong on this, but the answer we kind of went with was the defense, where a Technomancer can do all this stuff without needing that stuff, and maybe can do it to an aspect more powerfully, but when they get attacked back, damage is going to their brain and not to a deck.
Yeah, it's tough for them to turn
correct?
it off. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you also can look
dangerous.
At some of the parallels between like Street Samurais and Spellcasters, where they both can become very powerful, but they sometimes advance in different ways. So a Technomancer is going to advance a lot more with Karma, and a Decker is going to advance a lot more with Nuyen. They're going to be able to buy better decks. They're going to be able to buy more augmentations. Augmentations aren't great for a Technomancer because that affects the resonance. And so they're not going to want to get too augmented. So the Karma builds can be really powerful, but sometimes it takes a while to get enough Karma. Whereas if you get a few good hits, you might be able to buy a fancy new Cyber deck and Cyberjet and get yourself boosted quickly. But, whether it's the same long-term power that the Technomancer has, that's what long-term players are there to fight about.
I like the image almost of, with that description, like, you've got a really good Decker and a really good Technomancer, but the Decker pulls up and looks very, like, humble, but has all the implants and the nice cyber deck and everything like that. And the Technomancer has nothing else to spend the new yen on, so rolls up in the really nice car and, like, has the nice things, lifestyle.
What you get when you don't have to spend everything on the cyber deck. I get a car.
Awesome. I'm going to use that in a game at some point where I've got a Decker and a Technomancer, and that's the difference between, and that's how you tell them apart.
Rich bastard Technomancer. I love it.
So let's talk into getting into the dangers of the Matrix a little bit. So you hack and you attack these hosts, you try to hack into these icons and stuff like that to get information or whatever you're trying to do. And we talked in the game today about marks, which is a little more 5th edition than 6th edition, but can you explain what that is and how it works?
So marks are when you kind of put your mark on a host to show that you're hacking into it. The more marks you get, the more you can do in that host. So there are certain actions that require, 3 marks, certain actions that require 5. So the more marks you get, the more you can do. We didn't totally go away from that in 6th edition. We just kind of changed the levels and streamlined them a little bit. So where you might have had 3 marks to be able to do user, and I think that was the right number, but it's been a while since I've looked at the 5th edition rules. 3 marks to do a lot of user-oriented activities. We just now call that user access. And then you can get admin access. So you have those 2 levels of getting in, and then there's the basic. If you haven't hacked in, you have anyone access. So a total of 3 levels of access in SR6 versus the different levels of marks in SR5, but they all serve the purpose of showing how much illegality you're doing and starting a count of when the people who monitor illegal stuff in the Matrix are going to start paying attention to you. So the more
we're going to get to that.
Doing, then the worse it's going to get for you. And as you see, my guest has joined me in the ladder behind me.
Hello. Hi, AC.
It's past her bedtime, and she should go to bed. Yeah, you go brush.
I just want to.
Speaking of illegal activity. Bye.
Tough to keep her away from camera.
So it's interesting that you have to leave a mark to get access. The more marks you leave, the more control you get, but the riskier it is that someone's going to find you and start hitting back.
Exactly.
And are these marks left? Like, okay, great, I did the thing, I hacked the thing, I did all the access, got all the information, and now I'm out. Are those marks left behind for someone to find?
Usually they go away. Usually they'll leave as you go because you don't need them anymore. Unless you're trying to leave a back door for yourself, then some might stay, but usually they'll just erase when you go out.
Gotcha. So if there might be a reason you would come back, that's why there might be a mark still on there.
Yeah, if you want to leave a back door.
Okay. Because Bitbucket left a mark that Anjali's character was able to find. Trigger was able to find.
Yeah, there's another. I think for Bitbucket there was an extra reason in that he was leaving it almost as Matrix graffiti to say, Bitbucket was here just to kind of announce his presence. And it worked. You saw how they reacted to Bitbucket on the stream as they were like, oh, if Bitbucket was here, then we know that this is serious.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Okay, cool. So you hack, you do the thing, and now the people that are watching, or the entities that are watching, we've got other deckers or technomancers that could be watching, and security protocols. We have IC, and we have God, Grid Overwatch Division. So let's talk a little bit. I think we can get kind of the concept of hacker versus hacker, doing all the clickety clacks to make the things happen. So let's talk about ICE. What is ICE?
So ICE are intrusion countermeasures. They're usually set up to launch in a host in a specific procedure and order, and they will do various tasks so that you don't always have to have a person watching. You can have these programs do their things, and they will sometimes just be patrolling. Sometimes they're very aggressive and will attack, and that can be aggressive enough to do physical biofeedback damage to you if they hurt. So some of them mean business and want you out of that host quick and will hurt you badly if you don't leave.
So that feedback, that biofeedback, so I imagine it at first, attacks a deck. We'll talk deckers.
Mm-hmm.
The deck might take so much damage that it almost shocks the decker that's plugged into it.
Right.
Okay. Another thing, too, that could happen is if it kicks you off entirely from the matrix, it could cause dump shock. So what is dump shock?
Dump shock is just, I mean, I guess I've played Shadowrun too much. I'm like, well, it's just what it sounds like. You have shock from being dumped. What? But it's when you are abruptly kicked off the matrix because you had so much of your brain wired into it that your brain wasn't ready to make that transition. And so it's, it's like in the old days when you had a computer that you shut off before you quit all your programs, then you turned it back on again, and the computer was like, I don't know how to function anymore because you didn't quit things properly. So your brain didn't quit things properly, so it's not working for a while. Well, if Rem's going to be paused, at least it's while she was laughing. There we go. Okay, she's back.
Oh, there I am. I'm back. Okay, so we heard about dump shock. So ice can come get you and knock you off and do really painful things to either your brain or your deck and damage your deck. Dump shock, if you unplug before you're ready, it can hurt your actual brain. It can kill you. And then let's say that you're just a super great stealthy decker that avoids all the ice or defeats it all or whatever the case may be. What is God?
The Grid Overwatch division. They are specifically tasked with not letting you get away with your crap. So they are extremely powerful. They are a division of the corporate court, so they go straight to the top of the sixth world, and they want to not allow illegal hacking. So they monitor very carefully for any illegal activities. The more illegal activities you do, the more likely you are to get noticed. So in both SR5 and SR6 and Anarchy, you get an Overwatch score, which as you do more illegal activities, it mounts higher and higher. And once it gets to a certain level, then God notices and says, oh, we have this much illegal activity over here. We need to send someone to check it out. So they will send one of their agents after you, and they don't play. They're not there to politely ask you to get off the matrix. Thank you very much. They are there to kick you off and make your life difficult for all the bad illegal things you've done. You don't want them to come after you.
Yeah. I haven't really experienced in a Shadowrun game, like, it's the threat of God that's scary enough rather than seeing them show up. The only time they've gotten close to seeing the firepower that they can do is when I read Dark Resonance, which is fiction, and you should go get it. It's one of my favorite books by Phaedra Weldon. And it does a really good job of explaining kind of the Matrix and Technomancer's role in the world, which, again, my brain doesn't speak computer, so that was very helpful for me. But at one point, God gets... Yeah, it's a really good story. And at one point, God gets triggered and things are about to blow up, but you're going to have to read about what happens yourself. But that's the closest I've seen to, like, consequences are coming. What's going to happen? So God is like the big scary thing over watching the Matrix. Cool. So we talked a lot about the Matrix, the threats, the places, the icons, deckers, and technomancers. So let's talk a little bit about story. Because Bitbucket and Bull, this is not their first time in the Sixth World making an appearance. So can you tell us a little bit about who Bitbucket and Bull are?
So Bull especially. Bull is one of our friends. Bull is a great story of Sixth World perseverance. It's just a guy who started like play testing with FASA way back in the day and created a character called Bull, the best orc decker you never met, because you never met him because he's too slick. And so he's had that character for decades now, played him through multiple editions. Bull's been a fantastic demo agent. He was missions developer for a time. Most recently, and this is real world Bull, not in-universe Bull. Most recently, he worked a lot on the Shadowrun Edge Zone game that we did because he loved the card game from back in the day, so he was very well equipped to help us update it and make it current. So Bull, the person in the real world, has always had Bull, the character in Sixth World, and he's just come along and developed when Fast Jack left Jack Point at the end of SR5 or SR4. Sorry, that was SR4 that he
Fast
left.
Jack is an alias for a person. Jack Point is a place that Deckers get together.
Oh, it's a place where all Shadowrunner, a lot of Shadowrunners of all stripes get together because they share.
I thought it was just Deckers.
No, you've got Winterhawk, who's a mage, and a lot of mages. Winterhawk, Jimmy No, corporate people, adepts. Got the whole realm of people going on Jack Point. So yeah, he was the moderator, administrator of that to be a place where Shadowrunners share information. He got a bad brain disease and had to leave. And then he was succeeded by a trio of administrators. A guy named Glitch, a younger Decker named Slammo, and Bull became one of the administrators of Jack Point. So he's large and in charge. And so
awesome.
He has been around for a while, and it's always great to have the character of Bull continue through because he's been a legendary character for a long time, and also we like the person of Bull, and so we want to have him continue to pop up in games.
Bull is very sweet.
Big Bucket, I think Big Bucket was someone we developed for the Rogues Gallery deck, if I remember right. So Bit Bucket.
I know most they could be in Rogues Gallery. Most of the NPCs from Anarchy, I believe, or from Excommunication, were pulled from the Anarchy book, and Bit Bucket is in there.
Okay, so that's right. It goes back to Anarchy. So Bitbucket does not quite have the detailed backstory of Bull, but Bitbucket is another quality hacker, and it's and you know how hackers are. They always want to prove themselves against each other, so they're always trying. They're like gunslingers in the Old West, always trying to see who the fastest one is and who can outgun the other one.
I'm now forever gonna imagine all Deckers are like League of Legends players that just yell at each other about who's better and who sucks. And
it's that show on Paramount about esports. Oh, what was that show called?
Sorry, League of Legends players, but also tell me I'm wrong. So we're starting to run low on time. So we learned a lot about the Matrix. I want to get to some questions, but I also want to hear from you, Jason, on like, what's it like seeing a series like this come to life with the actors and their portrayals? We got to see a little bit more of the role play aspect this game or this session. So you haven't seen the show before these episodes are premiering. So what do you think so far?
I am fanboying out. It is just so much fun to see the game happening and to see people this talented and having this much fun doing it. It's just, yeah, every time I'm seeing, just little mentions of things, of rules that we worked on and storylines and just seeing how much fun they're having, I'm just clapping giddily. So it's really exciting to see them having fun with it. And that's, one of the best parts of the job is seeing people have fun with Shadowrun and seeing people who are really good role players having fun is fantastic.
You had told me on one of the interviews we've done over the past several years, you had told me that like being the Shadowrun line developer was a dream of yours. Like you really wanted that at some point. So now that you have been at the wheel for as long as you have, what's it like to see it grow and change from edition to edition, and what comes next?
What comes next? Who knows? I don't know. I'm still making this stuff up. I don't Not 7th edition. 7th edition is not coming out for at least a year, probably 2, maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 5. Just so we all know. But it's been a lot of fun, especially doing 5th and Anarchy and 6th because they're all very different flavors of how to play Shadowrun. And they're not, neither one's the right flavor, neither one's the wrong flavor. It's just what works for you. And so it's fun to just kind of experiment with what you can do and still try to make it feel like Shadowrun. And because I like Shadowrun so much, it's really fun to put it into any different mode. And that's, we also have Edge Zone to be the card game, and Sprawl Ops to be a board game, and Takedown to be a board game. And we've got other things coming up. We did the 0-day card game. We've got all sorts of ways to play Shadowrun because it's just such a great universe to play in, and I love exploring all of that. One experiment that I'm just starting to work on is, we've always done certain core books. We've always had a combat core book, a magic core book, Decker core book, Critter core book. Critter core book will be coming out this fall. All those other core books, but what I've never done before is a face core rule book. So for all the faces and social adepts out there, so that they can have a whole big core book of rules and gear and augmentations and special things for them, different edge uses. So we're going to start working on a core face rule book that you should see next year.
Awesome.
It will be called Smooth Operations.
I love that. I there's so faces or bards from the more fantasy side of things. I've never really been interested in playing them because I've been a performer in real life, and it's like I role play to get away from who I am. So I usually play really cranky characters. Um, but at the same time, there's some really cool things that I think you can do as a face and as an adept, a social adept, um, that brings so much of the sixth world flavor into it. And an example of a combination that I really loved at one point when I was playing Shadowrun missions more regularly at conventions was, is it facial mask that lets you change your face shape? So if you could imagine like the ability to change your facial structure and go incognito or impersonate someone, and then I did vocal mod, so I could just change both of those and get on a VR call or a AR call, and look like and sound like the person, but then like the body doesn't match the face. So some cool things that you can do with it. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, well, I love the psychological aspect. I love, the trying to figure out what people want and how you can push the buttons to get them to do something they otherwise might not be inclined to do. And then the con artist aspect. I'm a huge con artist fan. So talking about, how to trick people and how to make them offer you the thing that they're not supposed to want is a lot of fun. So it's going to be really interesting to work on.
Cool. So working on that, and that's what's coming for the fall, but starting next year, it is the 35th anniversary of Shadowrun. Is there anything fun coming that you want to talk about?
What am I allowed to say? So I think I'm allowed to say
I don't know the answer to that either.
I think Lauren spilled the beans on this, so I'm going to go ahead and say it and blame Lauren, and then he can blame me, and we'll blame each other, and that's how Catalyst works. So we are going to do a reprint of Shadowrun First Edition. You are going to be able to buy a print copy or PDF of SR1, but especially the print, because we've had some PDFs out there. And we are working to make it as an exact replication of the initial printing of SR1 as we can make it. So we have people hard at work on making the text, on getting the art all lined up. And so that is the goal, is that you can have a new version of SR1 next year.
And if you want to learn how to play SR1, hit the like and subscribe button both here and on the Realmsmith video, because if we can get the world to fall in love with Shadowrun for this series, maybe we can get a first edition campaign next year.
Why?
Help us out. Cool. So Gosh, Jason, I could go on forever, but I have one final question for you. What do you think of the portrayal of Torrin Skelly?
Okay. We all know Hollywood has long taught us that beautiful people aren't evil. Torrin is too beautiful to be evil. So I don't understand why he's called a rat and a traitor when clearly he also wears a vest, and vests are very cool. So I am outraged at this slander.
It's actually funny. So context for our viewers. Torrin Skelly is an NPC from the Rogues Gallery deck. Is that where?
Yep. Darn Fort Wayne Hotel internet.
Am I back?
Yes, you are.
Still gone. Gremlins! I have gremlins!
Gremlins quality is kicked in.
Sorry about that. The suspense was building, and I see Chad is very excited about first edition. We are all thrilled about that. So, and gosh, yeah, that art. So you were talking about Torrin Skelly and how wonderful he is. So for context, Torrin is in the Rogues Gallery NPC deck, correct? And was designed by an artist. The art is of our friend Jane here. It's funny actually because when you leaned forward at one point to tell us something, you looked like Torrin's photo in the picture.
That's the Torrin angle.
Yeah, and the hysterical part to me is I thought this was intentional. So out of the entire deck of the Rogues deck NPCs that Jason Azevedo could pick from, he chose Torrin Skelly, and I thought it was for a specific reason because it's Jason, the line developer of Shadowrun. It was entirely accidental. I didn't realize that he didn't know. And I was like, what a cool Easter egg to have the line developer be part of this series in such a major way. And Jason was like, what?
Apparently they picked him because he looked weaselly. So, all right then.
I love the accent, though. I'd like to hear your rendition of the accent that Jason Azevedo uses for this role.
I'm sure you would. You're not gonna? Not doing
Very
accents on any sort of video. I sang on video once, and it's haunted me for 10 years. So I'm not doing accents.
Well, so you're due for a new viral. We want this video, and we want the Realmsmith series to go viral. So, it's...
We do, but
really,
we don't want to go viral for me looking like an idiot. We want positive virality.
Awesome. How cool. Well, really glad that you're able to make that kind of appearance in the series, even if it was entirely accidental. I think it's a really cool Easter egg to share with you and the cast and the fans. I think I saw one question pop up in chat, so we'll answer that and then call it, I think. So this is a Matrix question. Let's see here. I have to scroll up. I've got to find it.
If it's technical, I might have to break out a rule book.
I don't think it was. How do you manage the flow of Matrix and meat space combat, and or have Maestral Matrix and Astral runs with the rest of the party being bored, without the rest of the party being bored?
I usually just integrate it into normal initiative, and so there's enough stuff that the that the Astral people and the Matrix people can do in parallel with the physical people, that as long as they're taking turns, then everyone's still got an opportunity to do something pretty quick. So I don't necessarily, if everyone's doing separate things, I don't get like 3 different initiative strains, even though you do have Astral Initiative and Matrix Initiative. It's easier for me to combine them together just to let everyone have a turn rather than try to get multiple turns for some. And usually, since SR6 Matrix flows pretty quick, they can do meaningful things without having to build up too much access. They can hack in on a brute force hack pretty quick and then start doing things like manipulate drones, manipulate cameras, eject people's ammunitions, all sorts of fun things.
Yeah, marks aren't so much a thing in 6, right? Anymore?
Right. No, it's just different levels of access. You either have basic access that everyone has or user or admin access.
Yeah, so the rules have gotten lighter a little bit for that. And of course for Anarchy, it's very cinematic. So you can make it work how you want to, but I think really it's the flavor that you want to do for your game. Like if you want it to be in initiative mode, like if the line developer of Shadowrun is house ruling initiative for Astral and Matrix, like you can do that too. But I think, another tactic could be, depending on how your table is set up in terms of archetypes, you could probably also separate because your meat space players can't see what's happening in the astral or in the matrix. So you could technically do different sessions or be like, hey, you guys go run and get us dinner and pizza or something like that while we do some astral or matrix combat. Um, and that way, when they come back in, they don't know what happened because they wouldn't know what happened. And you could be like, oh, yeah, this guy's walking around blind now because he can't seem to see for some reason. That's weird. No one even shot him yet. So you could play it in a couple different ways that work for your table.
Yeah, that would give you some
right
fun storytelling possibilities that way. So that could be a fun way to do it too.
Anything you want to add or talk about in terms of Shadowrun, the series? Anything at all before we say goodbye for the day?
Just mainly continued gratitude for the community. It's, the Takedown Kickstarter went great. It's really fun to see people watching the stream and having fun with it. And always great to see people enjoying the greatest role-playing setting that's ever been.
Awesome. Yes, it's true. I fell in love with Shadowrun, even though I swore I wouldn't. I'm a big hypocrite.
That's okay. We'll take it.
Thanks, Scott. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us, not just for the post-show commentary. Thank you for watching the Realmsmith videos. If you haven't yet, you should go check them out on Realmsmith's YouTube channel. Episode 1 and 2 are live. And for a bonus treat for you guys, Realmsmith also dropped the session 0 that we had live at San Diego Comic-Con, where we were playing full 6e rules, and it was chaos. So check it out, and it'll give you some good context for what happened before episode 1's story begins. So check that out. Follow us on all socials. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And we will see you next week for episode 3 of Shadowrun Excommunication. Until next time, stay safe in the shadows. Bye, everyone.